Good morning. Welcome to our panel on the pending Sotomayor nomination. I'm Tom Fitton. I'm president of Judicial Watch. And Judicial Watch is a nonpartisan educational foundation that monitors our government, especially as our name implies, the judiciary. You know, you have to give Barack Obama points for clarity when it comes to his judicial philosophy. The president has been unambiguous with respect to the types of judges he will appoint to the Supreme Court. During the presidential campaign, he said he favored judges with the empathy to understand what it's like to be poor or African American or gay or disabled or old. And when Justice Souter recently announced his retirement, Obama again tipped his hand regarding the type of justice he would appoint to replace Souter when he said, I view that quality of empathy, of understanding and identifying with people's hopes and struggles as an essential ingredient for arriving at just decisions and outcomes. And when word came down that the president would nominate to replace Souter, 54-year-old Judge Sonia Sotomayor, who certainly appears to be the personal embodiment of Obama's judicial philosophy, which places the premium on personal feelings over following the law. For example, during a cultural diversity lecture, now famously said, I would hope that a wise Latina woman with the richness of her experiences would more often than not reach a better conclusion than a white male who hasn't lived that life. Sotomayor also said she believes experiences as women and people of color should affect our decisions as judges. And she also said that among the differences are physiological differences, which I thought was extraordinary. This statement is identity politics at its worst and tends to undermine people's faith in the fair administration of justice. Just ask yourself this question. What happens if you enter Judge Sotomayor's courtroom and you happen to be the wrong gender, race, or sexual orientation? Will you be granted a fair hearing? No litigant should have to ask themselves this question when entering the court, let alone the Supreme Court. And if Judge Sotomayor's feelings guide her judicial decisions, justice in her courtroom operates on a constantly shifting landscape, depending day to day, perhaps maybe moment to moment, on Judge Sotomayor's moods, biases, and personal whims. And frankly, that standard and that problem would arise under any presidential nominee of Barack Obama. How could anyone have confidence that justice would be served in this scenario? It used to be the ability to completely set aside one's personal feelings was the high mark of impartiality to which all judges aspired. Liberals want to turn impartiality, though, into a weakness so they can use courts to advance a political agenda that often has failed at the ballot box. And obviously this is what we call judicial activism. Conservatives believe when applying the rule of law there is only one standard, apply it equally at all times. Judges must ensure that all litigants are given a fair hearing, regardless of their personal feelings and biases. This point seems to be lost on President Obama and presumably his Supreme Court nominee. And frankly, her speeches indicate that the point is lost on her. And so here's the question that members of the United States Senate must now answer. This is no longer a philosophical debate. Senators will be voting on whether they agree with this philosophy. Will they vote to confirm a justice who will make her decisions based on empathy and her personal feelings about a litigant? Or will they demand a nominee who uses the rule of law as a principal guide, applying the law equally to everyone who comes before the court, regardless of race, gender, or sexual orientation? If members of the U.S. Senate care one whit about the U.S. Constitution, it seems to me, they will reject this appointment. And I just don't mean Republicans. I mean Democrats as well. And let me be clear, it will be up to everyday Americans to show leadership on this. The senators are waiting to hear from Americans on this, and they will use lack of interest as an excuse to do the wrong thing. Democrats and unprincipled Republicans would like nothing more than to rubber stamp this nomination and move on. It will be up to regular Americans to let the Senate know what to do, and as we'll discuss today, time is running out. Joining me today are the top conservative leaders in the judicial confirmation battles. I think it's fair to say we have gathered here today some of the leaders of the opposition to Judge Sotomayor's nomination, although I don't want to put anyone in a box that they don't necessarily believe. To my immediate right is Manuel Miranda, who serves as chairman of the Third Branch Conference, a coalition of over 200 organizations that Judicial Watch belongs to, It's a nationwide coalition engaged on judicial matters, initially organized as the National Coalition to End Judicial Filibusters. He's also a visiting legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation, and he served previously, and importantly, as counsel to Senate Majority Leader Bill Frist, leading the Republican conference staff on judicial confirmations. He previously served as senior nomination counsel to the Senate Committee on the Judiciary as well. Manny was born in Cuba and raised in Spain and New York City, so that makes you Latin as well, right?
That's right. More qualified to serve on the Supreme Court.
As a result.
And you.
And he received his degrees from Georgetown University School of Foreign Service and the University of California Hastings School of Law. We're also pleased to be joined by Curt Levey, who's Executive Director of the Committee for Justice, the premier organization devoted to putting constitutionalist judges on the Supreme Court and the lower federal courts. An important matter we can't ignore, which is the lower courts and the appellate courts. There are some nominations there maybe we should talk about. After graduating Harvard Law School with honors and clerking for U.S. Court of Appeals clerking for the U.S. Court of Appeals at the Sixth Circuit, Mr. Levey served as Director of Legal and Public Affairs at the Center for Individual Rights, a public interest law firm here in Washington, D.C. There he worked on landmark Supreme Court cases, including the University of Michigan affirmative action cases that were decided a few years ago. And we're also honored to be joined by Roger Clegg, who's President and General Counsel of the Center for Equal Opportunity. He also focuses on legal issues arising from civil rights laws, including the regulatory impact on business and the problems in higher education created by affirmative action. A former Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the Reagan and Bush administrations, Clegg held the second highest position in both the Civil Rights Division there and the Environmental and Natural Resources Division. Certainly two divisions that needed conservatives, no matter who's running the show there. He's held several other positions in the U.S. Department of Justice, including Assistant to the Solicitor General, Associate Deputy Attorney General, and Acting Assistant Attorney General in the Office of Legal Policy. So a real expert, and he's a graduate of Yale University Law School. So as you can tell, we're really lucky to have these individuals here, and the timing could not be better. Hearings are scheduled to begin on Judge Sotomayor's nomination on July 13th. But in terms of schedules, the Senate goes into recess for a period of time. How long, Manny?
A week.
A week after July 4th. So they need...
Before July 4th.
Right.
As of tomorrow.
So they're gone, and they need to hear from citizens when they're back home about what they view, about their views on the nomination. But to start off, I'll start with Curt, who has been doing yeoman's work in terms of alerting people to the problems with the Sotomayor nomination. Curt Levey.
Thank you, Tom. Let me tell you a little bit about the Committee for Justice, which I head. Our mission has always been the rule of law, which is synonymous with ending judicial activism, and we particularly focus on the nomination and confirmation of judges. Under Bush, we focused on getting constitutionalists nominated and confirmed. Now it's our missions may be a little bit different, trying to limit the damage from the judicial activists that Obama would appoint. We've been around since 2002, founded by Ed Rogers and Boyd and Gray. And although we're best known for the Supreme Court fights, frankly, it requires at least as much work for the fights over the courts of appeal. For example, some of Bush's nominees, well-known nominees like Bill Pryor, Janice Rogers Brown, and most famously Miguel Estrada were obstructed by the Democrats, pretty much in an unprecedented filibuster based on ideology. And the experience of Miguel Estrada is particularly relevant here. He was going to be very likely the first Hispanic Supreme Court justice. And